in pace deorum, calpurno piso here. This film is hilarious. This priest in Australia, amazing. This is typical of Christ psychotic priest, you know, the Catholic. The whole thing came from the cult of Divus Julius. They used to wear a toga like this, and they were priests. All the senators were priests. Julius Caesar was a god. You know, his temple was created by Augustus in 29 BCE, by the son of God Augustus. Religion lasted 300 years. You know what they worship? A little baby. They worship the youth, the penis, because of the Egyptian religion. And the Egyptian religion, you know, 4,000 years ago, the whole thing started with a god masturbating. Everything came into existence after he masturbated. The river of life came out. Very interesting. And this priest is, with a foul mouth, is a creation, a product of the religion of the Roman Empire, the cult of Divus Julius. There's a lot of evidence that points to that effect. So actually, pedophilia, the worship of a penis Christ, that's the way I call it, and a lot of people don't realize that was very common in the ancient empires, because they didn't know what the male organ was and the female organ, which is considered like a cave of creation. In ancient, it was not pornography in those times. It was very normal. It was natural. But during the Roman Empire, this is what happened. You know, you have the religion of the cult of Divus Julius, which you can see the temples everywhere. And of course, with time, the whole thing mutated into, we can see today, as Christianity. And it was done by, of course, the greatest criminal, Constantine. He convened all the church. He invented. The church created all these characters, transforming the whole scenery or the whole characters that actually existed, Julius Caesar and the priesthood and everything, into what is known today as the Catholic Church. And it further mutated and mutated and mutated. And of course, then you have Lutheranism and Calvinism and the rest of this stuff. You know, it's disastrous. But the evidence, the archaeological evidence is there for all to see. Then there you have the origin of pedophilia, the worship of the young god that created the world. And it becomes like in the Etruscan religion, the boy Tages. It was a little baby, little boy that came out of the fields and created everything, but he has the mind of 100-year-old man, very, very wise, but he was very young. And he's represented as a young boy, but it's a god. All the gods were young and very good looking, with their organs of creation that was worshipped. That's what pedophilia comes from. So people out of it, you know, this retard, no wonder this retard is running around, you know, in Australia, you know, and of course the Pope is another criminal. The Pope is another retarded, immoral pervert with all those campy clothing. All these people we are bisexuals. All human beings are bisexual by nature, but the Catholic Church, they don't realize this. So, and they're against homosexuality. They have nipples in their chest, don't they? So are they straight? No, they're bisexual like everybody else. So these people are completely lunatics. They're anti-science, anti-everything, and we have to realize what it amounts to. So they should put in mental institutions to actually save them. And they corrupt the youth, and they keep corrupting it. Like Baden-Powell, you know, in England, 19th century, the Boy Scouts, you know, master, never got married, obviously everything points out to the man was homosexual. And this is the Boy Scouts, a Christian organization. First council of the church was the Council of Nicaea, 325. And then all the older councils of the church, they start keeping the fairy tales up to date, and they continue. The Virgin Mary was invented, of course, later, and she has a liquid which comes from her breast. Mothers feed babies with their breast. That liquid is white. It's called a river of life. It's milk. Well, the man semen is also milk. These people didn't know what it was. They had no idea. Thousands of years ago, they thought the heart was the organ to think with. The brain, they didn't know what the brain was. And of course, you have the Christ psychotics. People that are Christians are completely retarded and very ignorant, but are delusional. They're like they suffer from this schizophrenia type, but they are very anachronistic. They want to stay in the Middle Ages. They don't know what the reality, the truth of it all is. All the Roman gods, Mars, Quirinus, and all the other gods, they became the Catholic Church saints. Very convenient. They all became saints. They mutated. The mother of Christ, actually the mother of Julius Caesar supposedly, but anyway, it was the goddess Isis, or Artemis, which actually was invented by during the Council of Ephesus. And Artemis, the goddess, became Mary. But Mary in the Gospels was actually a mutation of Cleopatra, which was the lady of the Tower of Alexandria. This tower is of Magdala. That's what Mary Magdalene comes from. It's completely confusion. The whole story is mutation and mutation and mutation. All religious beliefs in ancient time have two elements: sex and drugs. See, they didn't know. They know sex felt good, but it was from the gods. That's the reason babies came from the gods. And of course, they used drugs to see God. And there were the sacraments. That's the reason the church, the Catholic Church, and this symbol is a pagan symbol. The symbol of Julius, the Roman emperors used the symbol. The gods, Quirinus, they used the symbol to bless. The Catholic Church, everything without exception, comes from paganism, the old Roman religion of cult of Julius. So it was important for the ancient church, for the ancient, in the 5th century, the Catholic Church was start taking over, to burn books. Anything that they invented, the stories, they want to keep everything together to fit their story. That's the reason the whole thing, after the whole thing mutated, the cult of Caesar became mutated, and Caesar became actually the new Christ, which is anointed. You know what anointed means? It means that you put oil in the head. What head? There's two heads. The penis, which is actually a god, I call it penis Christ, but it's a god. It has to be anointed with oil also. But normally the kings were anointed. It means the Messiah. So, and it was not pornographic at all. It was just very, very common. There was a god. Nobody know. He was the producer of the river of life, which was a milk. The same thing as the lady's breast, the milk. And saints of the Catholic Church, the Virgin Mary, produces milk coming from her tits directly to bless the saints, as you can see in this picture. Isis turned into the Virgin Mary, and the river of life is basically the milk of the breast and the penis, and the horns on Isis represents the penis as well as represents the sun god, the rays of the sun god.